Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. I'm really fortunate to have my next guest with us here. His name is Sam Wegert. He's also known as the co-living guy. He's an entrepreneur, a coach, and he's a real estate investor focusing on co-living. He's passionate about co-living and has been providing more affordable housing options that are clean, quiet, and also safe. But because of co-living, he and his wife were able to retire. Him at a young age of 23, but together they've grown their portfolio to over 8 short-term rentals and 150 plus co-living doors, which is super impressive. Sam's now transitioning more into a passive role in his business, and he's focusing on coaching others to help achieve financial freedom through co-living and that same business model. Sam, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. What's going on with you? It looks like you have been doing some traveling.
Yeah, man. Thanks again for the opportunity to be on this podcast. I'm really excited about just chatting with you about real estate. It's one of my many passions. But yeah, traveling is also one of my passions. I just recently got back from Africa, and 13 of my friends called me up and said, "Hey, we want to do Mount Kilimanjaro. It's the tallest peak in Africa. Let's hike it." And I did underestimate how hard it would be. I'm not gonna lie, but we did that for a couple of weeks, and then did a safari and just hung out in Africa for a bit. Yeah, so excited to be back, playing catch up. You know the drill.
Oh, I
Out
do.
of cell phone reception for 2 weeks means lots of meetings when you come back.
Oh
But
yeah,
it's
things
been
just
fun.
stack up, but I can only imagine how fun that would have been. Were you a hiker before you went out there, or was this something like, oh, I'm fit, I can do this, and then you just
I
went
love
for it?
anything outdoors. I've done some half Ironmans in the past, some triathlons, some half Ironmans, some marathons. I'm a runner. I love to work out. I love moving my body. It keeps me sane.
Yeah,
And so frankly, the summit rate on Mount Kilimanjaro is very high. A lot of people summit. And so I just kind of thought it would be like next to nothing, but it was actually a really hard, mainly the altitude made it difficult, man. It's like you're
yeah.
going to 19,300 feet. I think at 14,000 feet, the oxygen is half of the level at sea level. So you're more than that. You're higher than even that. So you have less than half the oxygen. I'll tell you this one scenario and then we can take this wherever you want.
Yeah.
On the way up the mountain as we're summiting, the guides who are leading us up the mountain are yelling at us saying, "Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Stay awake." And I'm like, I looked over, I'm like, "Do people fall asleep? Like, we're hiking." And then we took this little break and I put my head on the backpack of the guy in front of me. They wanted us really close. And I almost fell asleep. And I was like, "Oh, I got it. People do fall asleep. Like you're tired and it's midnight and you're out of sleep and you have no oxygen." So anyway, man, not to go down that hole too far, but it was a really fun experience. Yeah, I love outdoor stuff.
Well, that's the fruits of your labor, right? Like you were able to make some really important moves at an early age, set yourself up to be an entrepreneur at a young age of 15.
Yeah.
Starting your dojo, right?
Yeah.
So you're an educator in multiple ways
Yeah.
in martial arts, but also in the real estate world. And then you decided to do co-living. Was that like your first A lot of people start off like wholesaling, fix and flip, right?
Right.
And then they work into some more advanced strategies. But did you find it pretty early on?
Well, I think the reason, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a wholesaler, I'm not a fixer and a flipper. I've done that a few times, and I've decided I really don't want to do that.
Right.
But I think a lot of people get into that because they need chunks of cash, right? They need something to invest. They
Yeah.
need to get the ball rolling. And again, at least that's in my experience. I'm sure people get into it for a variety of reasons. But for me, I had a good job. I just being in the martial arts, I was running a martial arts company. We had a chain of martial arts schools, and they were very well run. They were profitable schools. We were teaching hundreds of families to earn their black belts together, and it was a really cool mission in of itself. It was like families training in martial arts together, and so I was making good money, and I just needed a place. Probably like a lot of people that have, if you're decently scrappy and you're not spending all that you make, you got a little left over and you want to know, if you want to set yourself up, you want to do something good with that money. And so I tried the IRA, and I remember I remember like 3 years into my IRA, I looked and it had gone down from the original value. And I was like, "Man, I'm going in the wrong way." Like, and I don't know. I mean, I know those things go up, they go down, it's fine. But for whatever reason, at my age, it just struck me that this was going to be a long-term thing. And I just was like, "There's gotta be a better way." So I just started buying real estate, and I started renting out rooms in homes and realized that I could double the cash flow. And then as I got bigger homes, I could triple the cash flow of what it would normally rent for on the market. And then I realized I could, like, even some of our homes were quadrupling the cash flow. It's insane. And so I just dove into that strategy hardcore, and it helped set my wife and I financially free. And at the same time, there's a mission behind it. You are actually solving affordable housing. You really are. And that's
Mhm.
not just me saying that, Benson. That's like the US Department for Housing and Urban Development came out with a statement, this was in 2021, and said, we believe co-living can help solve affordable housing. Like, please. It was like the HUD was begging local jurisdictions to loosen their restrictions for co-living, because they, like,
Yeah.
you can use vouchers. I don't know if a lot of the listeners know that you can actually use housing choice vouchers, what they used to call Section 8 vouchers, for rooms, not homes or apartments or whatever, like 4 rooms, and get guaranteed rent. So there's a lot of really cool strategies, a lot of really cool stuff's coming up in this space now. So you got me all excited. I'm probably getting ahead of you. That's
No, that's great. You're right though. When they came out, they did, hopefully there was to move the needle with some local jurisdictions, state or citywide.
yeah,
They got Jared Polis did that here in Colorado. He changed that law some time back that allows for I think like between 8+ or it's 8+ people to live in the same house that they're not relatives, right? So that's a movement, and so there's a lot of demand for housing. It's not getting any easier. I mean, I don't want to get political here, but we've got a lot of migrants coming in, and that's changing the housing dynamics.
right.
And I think it's going to continue to affect affordable housing moving forward. So co-living is a perfect solution for it.
100%. Yeah, and your governor in Colorado, yeah, he was bold, man. He just came out and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the law says, like, he just made it illegal for any local jurisdiction to regulate the number of unrelated people that live in a home, which in my mind is very constitutional. I mean, one of the big arguments that some of these tech companies that are getting into the co-living space are trying to make to local jurisdictions, and eventually they want to take it to the Supreme Court, is, you can if you're related to somebody, you can have an unlimited number of people in a home. And then if for some reason they're not related, then immediately they don't get the same rights. So you're giving people different rights just based on status of being related, which these tech companies are basically coming out and trying to say, like, hey, that's unconstitutional.
Right.
You can't give someone different housing rights based on familial status. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
We'll
But
see how
technically
far
it's not
that
a
goes.
protected class though, right? It doesn't
It's
fit
not.
into the protected class,
It doesn't.
which is
Yeah,
why they have to go and legislate it
that's right.
and try to change that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a student one time who uh he had like 10 people living in a home, and he wanted it to be in a protected class. So he was so scrappy, man. He asked all of his members uh if they had some sort of disability. And, like, keep in mind, like, disability could be like, you look at your phone, you're addicted to your phone, right? Which is probably all of us.
Right.
So, and then he's not legally required to disclose the disability. He can just say, hey, everybody in my home, it's a home with people with disabilities. So anyway, I don't even remember how it ended. I just remember he got really scrappy with trying to, like, fit himself into a protected class. You mentioned that and it made me think of that
Yeah,
story.
he was looking for the loopholes, right? And
He's
that's
looking for
often
the
what you have to do in real estate to find these, higher, more profitable strategies.
That's right.
Creative financing,
Yeah,
subject to seller
yeah,
finance, co-living,
yeah.
the whole house hacking thing. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people are getting creative there because, and like in Colorado, if you just bought a single family property right now at
Mhm.
today's rates, you have zero chance of it being able to cash flow.
I know, it's sad, right? Like, it's
Zero.
less. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
a lot of the investors here are just buying outside the state, but then they're avoiding certain states because they're not as landlord friendly. How has that affected where you've decided to buy your properties? Do you pay attention to landlord friendly versus not landlord friendly states?
Yeah, we do, is the truth. Because you're still gonna probably end up going through an eviction process if you have to evict somebody. Like, that's the truth. Now, I love that the name of this podcast is the REI Hacker Podcast, because, like, co-living fits the name of your podcast,
Oh
man.
yeah.
There's things we do that's just a little outside of the box. And I love that you said the money is made a lot of times in these, I don't want to call them gray areas, but honestly, that's kind of what they are. You're not, we believe we have a good legal right to operate, but it's new. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like Airbnb before all the regulations came out around. People don't know how to
Right.
handle it necessarily. And so there's a lot of money to be made in that. But what we use when I first started kind of scaling co-living, and when I say scaling, I mean little s. We're probably at 350 doors now, right? Between what my wife and I own and what we manage. And so, I wanted to prepare our companies for maybe some of those legislative things, depending on how they go. I wanted to prepare my company. And so I reached out to PadSplit. PadSplit's one of the biggest companies in this space, trying to be like the Airbnb of co-living, basically.
Hmm.
And I said, how are you guys getting around some of these jurisdictions? And they introduced me to what we call just the membership model. So instead of it being a lease, instead of me leasing my house to you, or my room to you, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lease my entire house to another company. So, you might imagine I have an LLC that owns my home, and I lease my home to another LLC. So there's really one lease on my property. And then the company that leases my home has a ton of members. So
Hmm.
and these members are like, think of a country club or a fraternity club, or think of like, remember how like you used to have to buy like a $1 membership if you wanted to go into like a place that served like beer and wine, but they didn't have an ABC license. But if you
Yep.
bought that $1 membership at the door, you were a member. Now they could serve you. This is kind of that model,
Right.
right? So now these members have access to the home. They get certain rights. It's this membership model. It's a housing product that they get access to. And so that I'm sharing the structure with you because we've spent tens of thousands of dollars recreating it. I now offer it to my students and allow them to use this model because it gives us more. It's not a get out of jail free card around every jurisdiction. It's not that. But it does give us more flexibility to operate. And it does give us a lot more flexibility a lot of times around landlord tenant laws. I mean, technically, if this is set up correctly, different organizations and clubs are actually exempt. There's a code in the federal law. It's like religious organizations and things are exempt from fair housing laws because they need to decide, if it's a Christian
Hmm.
group and they only want to let in Christians, they should be able to do that because they're a private
Right.
Christian club. And so there's some, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not trying to be on here giving legal advice, but I'm just kind of sharing a model that we use that does give us a little bit more flexibility. Um, and that's what some of the bigger tech companies are using. And so it's kind of something we've set up to give us more flexibility and maybe to give us more flexibility in not so landlord friendly states. Is
Oh
the truth.
yeah.
Um, and there's a lot of freedoms that come along with that. Now it still has to be done correctly. We still choose, even though we have the ability to just remove someone because they're part of our club, and we in our membership agreement, we could literally just remove their stuff if they violate certain things. Obviously, they have to break some of the rules or whatever. Um, but we still choose to go through the eviction process because in North Carolina it's a very easy, quick, clean process, and so we just at scale it's a little bit easier for our team to manage that. Um, but yeah, those are a little couple of ideas that might get someone's brain flowing.
Oh yeah. What large organizations don't like the co-living model? Because when you talked about Airbnb before, there was a lot of lobbying efforts by like the big hotel to stop Airbnb from not from doing that because it was taking business away from the hotels.
Yeah.
Is there a lobbying effort to stop co-living?
Not that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty connected to the space, at least in the United States. I don't see any
Yeah.
lobbying effort to stop it. Um, I would say your biggest hurdle might just be jurisdictions um, that don't like it or that don't understand it or that are college towns and have already tried to crack down on more than three people living in a home. And so
Right.
now, this co-living model comes in. It's not really for college students. It's really for working professionals. It's workforce housing. It's affordable housing. And so it's a slightly different than just like a college dorm frat house kind of thing, but they still see it a lot of times as the same. And so they can be aggressive against them. And you got to be
Mhm.
careful. There is definitely a co-living friendliness that you've got to understand, um, of each town before you invest. And we do a lot of research on that. We research towns and cities, what their co-living friendly score is. We give them a co-living friendly score.
Hmm.
But no, I don't know of any like organized effort. If anything, I see the opposite. I mean, I think Airbnb, we're seeing the opposite of Airbnb. So if Airbnb regulations are increasing, we're seeing increasingly less regulations, more freedom being given to this space. I mean, there's something called the City of Yes initiative in New
Mm,
York City, which in all 5 boroughs, which is all about converting office space to co-living buildings. Like that's literally a big piece of the initiative. LA just came out with something that's very pro co-living. The state of Washington just completely legalized it. Colorado, you mentioned. I mean, we're seeing a lot of like, we're starting to see people catch on to like, this could solve an issue that we're having. Why don't we
right.
do this? And by the way, it's like, you don't have to build anymore. You're just increasing density in homes.
Hmm.
Really what you're doing. You're not building. Um, you're not it doesn't take subsidies to even provide this type of housing, and we're coming in with a product that's 50% of a studio apartment cost. Like it's kind of a win-win even for regulators and for politicians. Like provide more affordable housing without money. It's a
Oh
good
yeah,
win.
it really is. I mean, this affordable housing crisis, as they call it, it's widespread and it's all over the country. Our population is increasing. There's more costs, right? It's harder for people to get access to, money that they need to be able to just pay for basic things like utilities and
Right.
insurance and food. I mean, food and shelter, right? So it's like it's coming from both ends, right? Cost of living's going up, and so you have to figure out a way to do it. And so it's a perfect solution. Um, you know, the co-living model, like you said, you're talking about Pad Split, they're coming to Colorado soon. We run a group here in Colorado called the Cash Flow Club, and they came and presented to our group. And so we're all really excited they're coming here. And
That's cool.
it's just one way of doing it, right? Like some people will self-manage,
That's
and
right.
some people will use Pad Split. Are you guys using both, or does it just depend on the area?
So I own a property management company, so we just manage all of our own stuff and a lot of my students' properties. And then I have a lot of
Mhm.
students who self-manage, and 1 to 2 to 3 properties you can self-manage pretty easily.
Right.
If you're going to go to scale, you might need some help with it. And, you know, management and the operations is arguably one of the harder parts of doing this at scale, just because yeah, it's like imagine trying to short-term rent your house before Airbnb was around. It's like it's a little bit more difficult, right?
Right.
But there's a bunch of companies out there trying to crack the code. Um, and they will. They will. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah. Well, now
But
there's a model too. There's a track record of what works and what doesn't work because when anything starts, you really don't have the KPIs to track what's working
right.
and what's not working. But now it's been around for long enough. Um, where do
Yeah.
you see, because there's lots of benefits, right? From your perspective, where's the downfall or where are the negatives when you look at a co-living
Yeah.
strategy?
Yeah. I'd say there's two big ones right now. Number one is financing the homes. It's a little odd if you go to your banker and say, "Hey, I've got a 10-bedroom single family home," when every other home in that neighborhood is 3 or 4 bedrooms. And I need to refinance it, or I want to contract on, or I want to buy it, or whatever. It's like, okay, there's just a little, yeah, it's not as well, it's not a package right now. It's not, people don't
Mhm.
understand it. Lenders don't understand it. Lenders don't know how to underwrite it. So what it kind of leaves you with is having to buy the home and then convert it after you buy it, which just requires us more cash, right? Because you're buying the home, you're putting whatever percent down your lender is making you put down, and then you have to have cash to add bathrooms and or a bathroom or add a half bath or put up the walls and add the closets and like actually do a good, nice conversion to a co-living home.
Right.
So that's a downfall. Now there's many ways you can mitigate that and get around that. Um, we've been pretty successful with when we buy homes for co-living, we ask the seller to pay for the rehab. We might end up paying a higher price for the home, but we'll ask them to cover at closing like all the costs for the rehab. So it's kind of a little scrappy hacker play. We call it an invoice authorization.
Mm.
Um, we've been somewhat successful. I actually got a lead today. I didn't even follow up with it yet, but from a lender who supposedly is like would be one of the first ones if this turns out to be what this guy is telling me, where they can actually underwrite the loan based on the co-living income of the loan or co-living income of the home, excuse me, which that would be groundbreaking because now they're starting to
Hmm.
take in, hey, what will this rent for? So that's powerful. Um, but it's not widespread yet. You got to kind of find the niche lenders, and we spend a lot of time vetting lenders and teaching the lenders about the concept. So that's on that. Now, I will say on the flip side of that, we have a couple of lenders who are actually willing to underwrite a property based on like the income of the property, even if it's a single family home. So that's on kind of the negative. On the positive side, you have these lenders that will look at it and will actually, if you pay for what, what they call a commercial appraisal, they'll look at not only the comp value, what that home is worth in relationship to the other homes around it. They will also look at what it has produced in income over the last 12 months. And
Mm.
they'll give it a value based on that. Now, a co-living home can produce thousands and thousands of dollars a month. One of our co-living homes can, spits out $8,500 a month, and it's a $400,000 home. You're hitting the 2.5% rule almost, or 2%, right? Over the 2% rule. So it's like, okay, that's going to have a really great valuation. So you're kind of seeing, it's a new space. Things are shifting around. So you're kind of seeing stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Is
the
there a
other,
secondary market for those properties yet?
yeah, for sure. For
So the
sure.
other investors are coming in and they're looking at the house strictly from the co-living angle.
That's
Because
right.
normally when it hasn't been done that way, you're going to underwrite it from a traditional long-term rental aspect, right? Like especially if you're
Right.
getting like a DSCR loan,
That's
right? They're
right.
going to look at like normal rents and then you're
Exactly.
going to up it. But at that point, it's like, well, I guess I have to keep this thing forever because nobody's going to come in and buy it from me based off of the amount of revenue I was able to generate from a co-living strategy. But it sounds like it's starting, there's going to be a secondary market of investors to come in and take those over.
For sure there will be. Yeah, for sure there will be. And there already is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you think about it, a commercial investor is really buying a stream of income. That's what they want, right? And so they're willing to pay a certain amount for a stream of income, um, based on the risk that they feel like that stream of income has.
Right.
Yeah, we're seeing the secondary market. Someone just, yeah, I mean, in my community, I'm even starting to create co-living homes. I think this is a great opportunity for anybody listening to this that's a wholesaler or a fixer and flipper. Get connected to the co-living people in your town, because, you know, a home that you buy and then you convert specifically to co-living will sell at a premium,
Right.
because someone will be willing, as long as, and you could probably get a contract on it before you even, finalize it. So, you have an end buyer for it, but it's definitely worth something to convert it directly to that model with the right number of bedrooms and bathrooms. So we're seeing some wholesalers. There's a guy in Arizona who's starting to do that. He's a wholesaler. He'll just, fix it up. He's flipping homes, but he's flipping them to co-living. I'm starting to do that for some of my students. Is I'll buy them. I'll buy
Hmm.
these homes off market. I'll rehab them to co-living. I'll furnish them. I'll get them all ready and sell them as a turnkey product to my students. Right. So that's kind of that's a huge market. I say huge. It's up and coming, I think, is probably more accurate.
Yeah, I could see it as a very valuable niche. I mean, there's two things I noticed there. It's kind of like the Burr model, right? Like if you go in there and you go in and you transition it from like a 3 bedroom, 2 bath to a 5 bedroom, 3 bath, and now it
Right.
can rent more. Like that's value add.
That's right.
You could literally flip that to a co-living entrepreneur, and they're going to perceive the value not based off of a 3.2 ARV. They're looking at
Mhm.
an ARV that has to do with the 5.3 and the amount of revenue it can generate.
That's right.
Right. So that's the first thing. But then from like a wholesale perspective, they're always working off of ARV, which again is
Hmm.
only based off of typically what better existing bedrooms and bathrooms are there, maybe, plus
Right.
or minus one or, one or two
Right.
without adding an addition, which
Right.
is extremely expensive and rare. But yeah, I can see that being a really important niche for wholesalers who are looking for a way of making money in an area where it's harder to get those really deeply discounted deals to make the numbers work for a traditional fix and flipper.
That's right.
Where if you've got all these co-living entrepreneurs in the back end who will come in and buy these properties
Yeah.
and you can lock them up, maybe even do the value add yourself. And it's almost like a wholesale
That's right.
to these end buyers.
That's exactly right. Yeah. To give you an example, the last 4 properties I've bought have been from a wholesaler here in Charlotte, and I paid well over asking for every single one. just because I knew like it was more valuable to me than anybody else that was walking that just to flip it to a normal single family home. I was like, I saw it, and the guy reached out and he's like, I think this is your one. And I'm like, I immediately bid 10 to 15 to $20,000 over the wholesaler's asking, just because I want to snag it. And my wholesalers are so smart, man. They get you there. They have 1 hour. You have to bid at the end of the hour. They got all these people there,
Hmm.
and they make it this little competition, and they don't tell you what everybody else's bids are. So I just like bid over so I know I get it, right? Um, but anyway, all that is to be said is, yeah, you're thinking about it correct, man. That's a beautiful way. I'd say the second big, I want to kind of finish your question about like what are the negatives, because I think there is one more negative. There's the financing part of it.
Hmm.
And then I think the other negative that people need to take into consideration is just the operations. And they need to recognize it's nuanced. It's not managing a single family home. I mean, you're literally managing 8 or 10 or 7 or 6 individuals in a home. And that comes along with certain nuances and things you have to have figured out. Otherwise, it will be hell. Uh, we affectionately call them peanut butter problems. Where John, one of the members, calls you up and says, Susie ate my peanut butter. What are you guys
Right.
gonna do? You as the manager or whatever. And you're like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, what the heck? So there's all these systems you have in place, whether it's labeling things, labeling cabinet space, or having certain locks on the doors, or having cameras in the common area, not of course where there's any expectation of privacy, but in the common area.
Right.
Um, to help deal with some of these things. Now, I do believe the juice is worth the squeeze if you can manage it correctly. But some people say, that's a lot to manage. And it is. At scale, it's a lot. It's a lot. Um, but that's where the opportunity lies.
What's been the feedback from people who live in these places? Because from an entrepreneur perspective, yeah, you're going to make a lot more money. From somebody who's living in a co-living space, right? They have less common areas, right? They're going to have a smaller bedroom likely, with just minimum amenities. Maybe you got like a small little closet, a couple of drawers,
That's
right?
right.
What's the feedback from people who are living in those?
Largely positive. I mean, you're going to have a couple of bad eggs in every situation,
Yeah.
people who will complain or whatever. But I mean, largely people are grateful. There's a way to do co-living with a hint, with an element of community. And this is what I'm really trying to preach, because I believe that if we have more of this, we solve multiple huge social problems. We solve loneliness, we solve affordable housing, we solve getting better returns and, financial freedom for a lot of people. And so, or just supplemental income. Maybe someone's not trying to quit their job. They just want some supplemental income or increase their income, and rent out a few rooms in their house. But what I really preach is try to do co-living in a way where there's a common space, where there's a way for people to co-work and interact and mingle together. We put everybody through an educational program. We don't force them, but we give them the opportunity to go through an educational program. And if they finish that program, we pay them, give them cash, a Visa gift card, right?
Hmm.
We do annual
What's the
part.
content of that educational program?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like a Tony Robbins-esque manual
Okay.
on, like, it's everything from good eating habits to exercise to meditation to gratitude, to having a gratitude practice to journaling. I mean, just think about it like a Tony Robbins-esque, to goal setting. I mean, one of the sections in that manual is goal setting. We call it a Thrive Journal. And one of my buddies wrote it, so I can't take credit for putting the curriculum together, but took a lot of it from Tony Robbins and um uh just other personal development guys that teach a lot of the life skills that we learned, right, and that we
Right.
applied to our businesses, I'm sure. So that's largely the content. So I wish people would do it more. I mean, I had a lady the other day. She said, Sam, she's in my program, and I hadn't seen her for a while. Like, I hadn't seen her for probably 6 months on a live call. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I had a daughter pass away from cancer. I was like, oh my God. She's like, but we finally filled our home. It just took us a lot longer than we thought. It took her like a year and a couple months. I was like, wow, that's great. How's it going? She's like, we finally filled our 12-bedroom home. I was like, wait, you told me it was going to be 8 rooms, 12. Because I think there's a sweet spot in co-living. I think it's like 7 to 9, 12. Like,
Right.
yeah, but we found an attic. We built out the attic. And she goes, I got to tell you, Sam, the members love it. love it. She's like, we have these, and she kind of starts to explain some of the things she does to build a community. And I just wish that people would do more of that. You know, you can send pizza to the home every quarter, every month. You're producing enough cash flow from these homes. You can send in professional cleaners to clean it for them, right? You can do some of this really cool stuff that they wouldn't normally get, that then makes it feel more bougie than even an apartment. I mean, nobody's coming in to clean your space in an apartment building, right?
No,
So there's some perks to it, man, if you do it correctly. And um that's what I hope people take away when they hear this. I hope they don't just take away cash flow. And by the way, this lady told me, she said, I said, how much are you netting? She goes, we're netting $5,000 a month. Now, granted, she's self-managing it. And I was like, from one home in Houston? She's like, yes. I'm like, holy crap, it's crazy,
wow,
right? And it's so, again, that's not results, not typical, and I'm not promising that. This is not an earnings call
sure,
podcast, but I am just trying to share the power of this if it's done correctly. And I think she's doing it correctly because she's got community, and she's trying to build a little bit of that into this model. So we try to do that, and I hope people take that away, that there's a mission behind this too.
yeah. Who's the ideal tenant for someone to live in a co-living environment?
I mean, I think it depends on who you target. I think there's different ideal. I mean, definitely someone who's doesn't have kids,
Okay.
preferably no pets, right? These just cause contention. And so yeah, preferably no kids, preferably no pets, and you know, someone that's single. We see a lot of, you know, 30 years old and younger, and then 50 years old, 55 and plus, right? But that middle section, not as many, just because that's usually when people are kind of in their careers and they're married or kids or whatever. But um you know, a lot of what we're seeing is people who are making less than $50,000 per year. Honestly, they're making $20,000 to $40,000 per year. Um, and they need a place to stay. They cannot afford a studio apartment in that area. So we try to put our homes within 30 minutes of a commute distance to employers. Could be an Amazon warehouse. Being close to the airport is really, you know, key. Anybody that makes, you know, anywhere from $8 to $20 an hour, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I have students who have like decided to go super full on bougie with this model. I was talking with a guy yesterday who fills his home. You have to fill out like a 4-page application to even join his home. Got a pool in the backyard. He's in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's a beautiful home. Uh, they do entrepreneurial masterminds. They cold plunge together. It's just like I don't even know if I would fit that. Like it's an intense. You got to like get up early. So it's, you can kind of create niches out of this model. Even I've got a guy who's solely focused on veterans. You know, I've got a guy who's solely focused on uh, healthcare professionals, doctors and nurses and traveling nurses. So you know, and they're going to make great money. They're going to be a little different clientele. So I'm not sure it's like, oh, this person fits. I think it's really a matter of what community do you want to build? Who do you want to target? I mean, I think the biggest market you can target is young working professionals that are just not making enough to afford in that big city what it would normally cost to live.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of thousands of those people that fit that income bracket.
I was even saying it's millions plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
huge and it's
nationwide for
growing.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I was even thinking like in a city, it's hundreds of thousands, but yeah,
Right.
nation millions for sure.
Yeah. Is there any
Yeah,
possibility of like a hybrid short-term rental with co-living?
I was curious how many people make less than 50,000 a year, but a hybrid model.
Right. So like
Explain
co-living
that. How would that?
setup, but you're doing short-term rentals by the room.
Yes, yes. I
I
think
don't
it
know. It
brings.
just popped in. I mean, we've been talking about both, and I'm thinking, well, shoot.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe they don't lease for the whole month. They're just passing
right.
through. Traveling nurses would fit that model.
Yeah. So in my model, it goes something like this. I believe that the room is the new apartment. Now, Americans don't think that way right now, but I think in 5 to 10 years they will. just because of prices. So if the room is the new apartment, then I don't even furnish the rooms. I want them to bring their stuff in. I want them to treat it like their apartment. I want them to sign a 12-month lease or membership agreement, excuse me. And I want them to go. So what you're talking about 100% can work. It's just different, right? You're going to have that
Yeah.
turnover. In the past, I used to advise people who wanted to do that. I said, well, tell you what, make 75% of your house long-term people, and then take 25% and furnish those rooms, and then do short-term rentals on those. The problem we ran into was that the people that were there long-term started to truly resent the fact that there was a new buddy in room 2 and room 3 and room 4 every weekend. Said
Right.
that the cultures didn't match as much. This guy would come in for a week and then he'd gone. And so there's a lot of like turnover. I think you're going to do better if you just create as much stability and reduce the variables as much as possible in a home. I mean, in a perfect world, you'd have 8 people that live together that would live there and it'd be home forever from an investment standpoint, and they'd live there for 8 years. Obviously that doesn't happen, but that's a lot, but that's what you're trying to create. And you're trying to create a place that feels and looks and acts so much like home that they want it to be home. They want to live there. It's
Hmm.
safe, it's clean, it's quiet, it's affordable. So there's throwing in the short-term rentals piece just mixes with that a little bit. Not
Yeah.
impossible, definitely can do. But those are kind of some of my experiences around it when we've tried it in the past.
Yeah. I talked to an operator here in Denver who does this thing. I don't even know how he gets it out there, but he tries to teach everybody that like we're family, right? Like we're a family. So
Yeah.
take care of each other. Don't take advantage of each other,
Mm,
and it's worked in some situations where he just is like, we're a family. This is all we're doing this together.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that, man. I think if there's a way, um, taking a note on that actually, there's a way to communicate that. One of the things I'm working on in my company is communicating that at scale now. Okay, we've got a team, we got a lead gen team, we got a showings team, we got a maintenance team. It's like, okay, it's not just me showing up and showing them and being like, guys, it truly is a family. Like I used to live in this house. It's different
Right.
now. So I'm trying to find a way to do that at scale is 100% what you're saying though. That's the game. You crack that code,
Right.
you win. You
Oh
win.
yeah. I think it'd be part of that education too, right? That you encourage people to take, maybe even have like a private Facebook group where people can post things happening, things that are going on, just a place to communicate where, because I've heard too that they like having people who have different schedules. So they have like 3 or 4 people that work nights and 3 or 4 people that work days, and they likely don't even cross paths very often.
Right.
Right. So that would be hard to create a family environment if you set it up like that. But I can see a way of, creating a community in some way, even like leveraging technology.
Yeah, we do like group chats, group WhatsApp chats for people.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. That's a great. The more of that stuff you can do, the better.
Yeah.
Um,
Like swag, even like, what if they all got, a shirt with like a logo, right? That represented that house, right? And they get to have some pride and and they get them for free too, right? So they're going to wear them.
that's
They're going to
right.
wear them when they're out and about. And it could even be like your brand, but so, they're out and about and people are like, what is that for? And it's like, oh yeah, it's this house I live at. And people are like, oh, that's so cool. And where could I find out more about it? Like it could be a branding opportunity in marketing.
Dude, I'm gonna do something with this. This is good. I'm gonna do something with this because one of the things we next quarter, I need to get more. I want to get more referrals from our people, and I think you're right. That starts with even deep diving into that more. So I could totally see some like fun competitions for referrals. But you're
Hmm.
right. Like, okay, how do you instill even more the pride in their home? That
Yeah.
significance of this is my home, and they compete and they win things or whatever. Yeah, if there's a way, and I have not figured this out yet. I mean, we're kind of masterminding, brainstorming this right now. I think we do a good job above a lot of other companies to do more community, but it's like one of those things where it's like, but if you could find a way to gamify like living in their home, that would be badass, dude.
Oh
That'd be sick.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
branding the same? Well, because like with your business, right? Like that you and your wife run, it'd be easier to create some sort of I don't know, similarities between the homes, right? With the branding and such. But you could even encourage like your students to do the same thing, like where they use the brand. And it's just like it builds out and like people everybody wants to be part of this community. And it's different homes, but it's one big family. And then once a year everybody gets together for like a big party or something.
Yeah. Yeah. We do the parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, dude, I love it. I love it.
So what's next? You were talking about, some of these cities are going to be turning an office space into co-living. Are you looking to get your foot in that door?
No, I've run the numbers on converting some of these office spaces. I don't see how people are making money doing it unless there's
Mm,
massive tax advantages. And I think that's where people are. I think that's what the government's trying to do. They're seeing empty office space and the government's coming in with some incentives. But without incentives, the numbers just don't make sense. I mean, do you realize
mm,
how much plumbing you have to run to take like an office space with one big old bathroom in the set to like it's just again, I'm not a huge construction. I've just preliminary run the numbers on a couple of office spaces and been like, nah, this wouldn't. It's just more effective to do it in a single family home. Way
right.
easier. But we are building from the ground up, which I'm
Mm,
really excited about. We've got two plots of land that we own now. Third one we're buying, and we're building. We just got the plans done. We're doing custom plans, 22 bedrooms and like 20 full baths. It's a duplex on a little quarter-acre lot, 3 floors. And I'm excited for that because we're going to be able to give everybody their own bathroom. Practically everybody. And that's what people want. They want that little
right.
privacy. They want to be able to be in their own bathroom. And that's just amazing. So, yeah, I'm really excited for that. Um, I'm really excited for that. That's kind of what's next for us. I mean, I want to keep building out I coach people, I have students, and we're continuing to build our property management company almost by default, just because these homes, you know, and so yeah, that's kind of what's next for us. I'm really excited about that. I think the building will solve a lot of the problems. Each one of these homes is like a little niche rehab, and it's just a pain in the. They're, for lack of a better way of saying it, they're just a pain in the ass, right? You're like, okay, where's the bathroom gonna go, and how are we gonna put the
Oh yeah.
walls? And it's like you do that 50 times, you're kind of like, man, can we just build this like exactly how we want it from the ground up? And if you can, I'm like, you should. That's how I think about it.
It's true. I mean, that's the same for like just building a normal home, like fix and flips, like an
Yeah,
older house where like the walls aren't straight, everything's crooked, and you have to go in and retrofit. All that stuff takes way more time to do that than if you just built it from scratch. So why not in this case? It makes perfect sense.
that's right. That's a
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So that's the next big thing, like
I think
build to
so.
rent co-living space, right? And adding in the bedrooms from the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, what's your ROI on that? Like the timeline? Where do you break even on that when you break ground, you're buying the land, you build it from scratch, right? You're going to have some cash flow, but
Yeah.
maybe that's just paying your construction loan to start.
Yeah. And there's a million ways to do it. I'll share this one example. I've got a guy in LA who's doing this. He's building these 32 bedroom duplexes, 16 on each side. It's like 32 bedrooms, I think 32 full baths. It's crazy. He's building them ground up, new construction, and he rents the entire thing to the city of LA for homeless housing. And there's all kinds of like exit strategies like that. He just builds them. He's a builder. So he just builds them, gets a lease on them, moves on to the next one. There's all kinds of organizations that need that type of housing. There's like so there's multiple exit strategies with the builds. There's hospitals. He was telling me this guy was telling me about a hospital who like needs their beds open, but so it's like this mixture between inpatient and outpatient. They need to be there, but they don't really like they can't really send them home quite yet, but they need a little bit of supervision. So they're
Mm,
renting some of these co-living buildings to put people in to free up beds in the hospital, but they still have a nurse that covers this whole co-living building with people like staying in the room. So it's like there's really creative strategies. Obviously, everybody has probably heard of sober living homes. There's even assisted
mhm.
living facilities now that have the co-living model. where it's not the big, massive 200 bed assisted living facilities, but it's like, hey, there's 10 people sharing this house and they have a full-time person there and it's a
Yeah.
little bit more of a homey feel. It's all kinds of really creative ways now. But I think with the builds, you buy a plot of land for probably about 100K in Charlotte. I'm just going to use Charlotte. I can build this building for probably about $1 million with 22 bedrooms. So I'm in for 1-1, So I look a lot of times at what is the cost per bedroom. It's a lot
Hmm.
of times what I look at. And divide by 22. So it'd be $50,000 per bedroom, which like you just can't beat that. That's a really, really, really good cost. And these, a master bedroom will rent for $1,000, maybe 1,100 in Charlotte, right? So you're
It's
kind of hitting
almost
like,
after 1 year, you've broken even.
yeah, and hopefully, depending on what it appraises at, you hopefully can pull out all your cash. I mean, that's the real goal, right?
Right.
Hopefully, this thing will appraise at 1.4. You get an 80% DSCR loan.
Hmm.
If you even fill it first, so you have the income, you have all the membership agreements, you can show the lender, look how much is producing. Like that'd be perfect world. Use your construction loan for a while. You pull out all your cash and you're just in infinite return moving forward. I'm doing 2 projects, and if I can do that on 2 projects, then I will go all in on building.
Oh yeah.
I'll, I'll let you know how we do.
Yeah, I'll invest. If
Yeah,
that first two work, just let me
exactly.
know.
Yeah,
I have some money for you.
exactly. That's the thing. It's like, um, but there's nuances. There's some city stuff we've got to get through. We got to get through permitting on one full one to make sure it's a viable option. So we'll see, but
Yeah.
we're hopeful. We're very hopeful.
But that permitting situation doesn't have anything to do with the co-living model. That's just the building stuff you have to go through
That's
anyway, regardless of what the exit strategy is.
that's exactly right. That's how we
Yeah.
see it. That's exactly right. We hope the city sees it exactly the same way. But you're right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just a lot of bedrooms and a bathroom. There's nothing that says we can't build a lot of bathrooms in the bedrooms and bathroom.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an apartment building. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we're
That's
building them on single
exciting.
family lots, so that's
Oh, that's to be zoned properly, right? But you already did that due diligence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's really cool, man. Well, I'm excited for you. Are you done with the martial arts studios? Did you sell that off or is it still operating?
They are still operating, and I did sell them off. Yeah, I sold all of them off. I sold the brand. I was going to retain ownership of a couple of the best schools, but decided to sell them all off. Um, I think in life you've got to make some decisions every once in a while just to clear your headspace. And I think it was one
Yeah.
of those moves for me, just to clear my headspace and move into a new venture. And that's what I'm really excited about with this.
Yeah, I'm sure that was bittersweet, man. Like your baby, you built it up,
It was.
you're passionate about it. You probably still,
Oh
do
yeah,
martial arts yourself. So you have to go pay somebody else to use their space now.
exactly. No, I'm
That's
sure any of my studios, I would like to think any of my
yeah.
studios would let me in to train. But I haven't done as much as I probably could or should. Um, yeah, it was a sad story of how it went down. I mean, really, it wasn't. I had a brother, a family member, a very close family member, running it all, and he made some very bad choices with his life. Went off in a completely different direction. Started, was on some drugs that he shouldn't have been on, and that was a big reason too of me just being like, you know what, I don't want to do this without him. He was close to me. He helped me build
Hmm.
this, so
Yeah, it was
decided
time.
to. It was time. It was God's
Yeah.
way, I think, of just being like, all right, Sam, time to move on.
Yeah.
So
On to bigger and better things. I'm excited for you, Sam. This new project is really exciting. If people are interested in this model and learning it, how can they contact you? Maybe just learn some more and then potentially even become a
yeah,
student.
yeah. I put out a lot of co-living content on Instagram, so just at Sam Wegert, SamWegert. And then if someone's interested in like doing a little bit of a deeper dive and learning how they can create passive income and financial freedom with co-living, they can just go to scaleyourrealestate.com and get on the waiting list for the next. I do these free events once a month or once every other month, and we call them 5-day challenges, where we jump in and for 5 days, for an hour or so a day, we deep dive into co-living content. So if you're interested in that, it's completely free. You can buy like a little $27 upgrade, but other than that, you don't have to. It's a completely free event. You can show up and just get tons of value. They're live, so I'm there answering questions and diving in. It's a lot of fun. And we usually have a couple hundred people on every one and just deep dive into co-living stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys should definitely check this out. I think this is really a niche that you can tap into that not everybody's doing right now. And if you get in early enough and you can, hitch yourself to a guy like Sam that's been there and done that and has massive success, I think it's probably going to shortcut the whole process, shortcut from now to when you start seeing success and building a portfolio like Sam has. So thanks again for listening. Sam, thank you for taking the time to be here and sharing your story and just all the cool stuff you're doing with the co-living space. And everybody else out there, keep an eye out for more editions of the REI Hacker Podcast. We'll have more amazing guests like Sam come in and talk about entrepreneurship and business and real estate investing, and just hopefully inspire you to take action and give you some nuggets, give you some things that you can implement in your business right now, and then just hit the road running. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.